When I was a teenager, my brother assaulted me. My parents never believed me and did nothing. Now they demand me to save my father and apologize to my brother. When I think back to my teenage years, there's a part of my story that still feels like a heavy weight in my heart. It was during those formative years, a time when I should have been discovering myself and enjoying the awkward journey to adulthood, that I faced something truly harrowing at the hands of my own brother. Despite being 2 years older than him, it didn't matter in the slightest because he had the physical advantage over me. He was both bigger and stronger, which he used to his advantage to hurt me. It wasn't just the physical pain that left scars, it was the psychological torment that followed. My brother, knowing the power he held, would often threaten me, saying that no one would believe me if I ever dared to speak out about what he was doing. This threat hung over me like a dark cloud, making me feel isolated and utterly powerless. Yet, despite the fear and the potential consequences, I reached a breaking point where I couldn't bear the burden alone anymore. So, I gathered every ounce of courage I had and decided to tell my parents, naively hoping for some semblance of justice, or, at the very least, protection. The reaction I received from my parents was a crushing blow, far worse than any physical pain my brother could inflict. They didn't believe me, not even for a second. The disbelief in their eyes quickly turned to anger, not towards him, but towards me. They were furious, punishing me for speaking out against my brother. In their eyes, he was the perfect child, incapable of such heinous actions. I remember feeling so desperate to make them see the truth that I showed them the physical evidence, the bruises that adorned my legs, the teeth marks that were a painful reminder of his cruelty. Yet even with the evidence staring them right in the face, my mother refused to believe me. It was as if she chose blindness over facing a reality too uncomfortable to acknowledge. The betrayal by my family left me with a deep-seated resentment that festered into hatred over the years. I hated my brother for the abuse and the trauma he caused me, but more than that, I hated my parents for their inaction, for their refusal to protect me. The day I turned 18, I made the decision to leave home, to escape a toxic environment that offered me nothing but pain and suffering. For years, I carried this hatred with me, allowing it to color my view of the world. Ironically, the only reason my parents ever came to know the truth was because of my brother's own undoing. One drunken night, with his inhibitions lowered, he confessed to my dad, bragging about his actions as if they were some sort of twisted achievement. He admitted to hurting me, treating the whole ordeal as a game for his sick amusement. It was only then, faced with the undeniable truth from the perpetrator himself, that my parents could no longer hide behind their denial. But by then, the damage was done. The years of disbelief and neglect couldn't be undone with a simple acknowledgement of the truth. The rift that had formed between us was too wide, the wounds too deep to simply heal over with apologies or regret. My teenage years, a time that should have been filled with growth and discovery, were marred by betrayal and pain, shaping me into the person I am today, forever changed by the actions of my family. The day they reached out, part of me deep down hoped for an apology, some form of acknowledgement for the pain I had endured. I thought maybe, just maybe, they wanted to make amends, to help heal the wounds, or even to hold my brother accountable for his actions. But the reality was far from what I hoped for. My mother's approach was to sweep everything under the rug with the belief that everyone makes mistakes. She suggested we should all just forgive each other, pretending as if nothing happened, and move on as one big, happy family. It was as if the years of pain and suffering I went through were just minor blips, easily forgivable and forgettable. That was the final straw for me. I realized then that seeking validation or understanding from them was futile. They were not the family I yearned for or needed, so I made the hard choice to leave them behind and cut off all communication. It was a decision that marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one where I was no longer defined by the trauma and neglect I experienced at their hands. Years passed, and with a lot of hard work and therapy, I started to rebuild myself. I built a life filled with joy, love, and peace. I found happiness in a marriage with a wonderful man, someone who showed me what it means to be truly cared for and loved. We began dreaming of starting our own family, a family where love and trust are the foundations. Just when I thought I had left the past behind, it came knocking in the form of my mother. My father's health was deteriorating, his liver was failing, and they were desperate. Knowing we shared the same blood type, my mother reached out, asking me to consider donating part of my liver to save him. Her plea was laced with the implication that I owed them, that after everything, it was my duty to step in. Her words stung with the same dismissiveness and entitlement that drove me away all those years ago. It was as if the years of abuse, the lack of belief, and the absence of support meant nothing. As if I should just forget it all because they needed me now. But I couldn't. The mere thought of going through with it, of putting myself at risk for people who had shown me time and again that my well-being was of no concern to them, was unthinkable. I said no. It was a firm, unwavering no. Not just to the idea of the donation, but to letting them back into my life, to reopening old wounds that had taken so long to heal. My mother's words, implying that I owed them this lease on life, only solidified my resolve. It was a painful reminder of the emotional chasm between us, a gap that could not be bridged by guilt or manipulation. Choosing myself and my well-being was not an easy decision, but it was the right one. It was a declaration that I was no longer bound by their expectations or by the past. My life, my happiness, and my family's future were, and always will be, my priority. So here's the deal. My dad's really sick. Like, his liver is having a big-time struggle, and my mom thinks I should be the superhero who swoops in to save the day because, well, we share the same type of blood. But here's the kicker. Things between me and my family, they're pretty rocky. And not the, oh, we had a small argument kind of rocky. More like the big, deep, canyon-sized gap kind of rocky. Now things got way more complicated when my brother decided to play the villain in this story. He went behind my back and told my husband a bunch of nasty, untrue things about me. He called me lazy, a liar, and even made up stories about me that were so out there, they could be from a bad movie. He tried to make me out to be the worst person on the planet. My husband, he's been my rock through all of this. Before my brother decided to spin these tales, I hadn't spilled all the beans about my past and my family drama to him. I mean, who wants to relive all that, right? But when these wild stories from my brother came out, my husband didn't just take his word for it. He came to me looking for the truth. And let me tell you, that conversation, it was one of the hardest I've ever had. I ended up crying a lot as I told him everything, every single thing that happened. And through it all, he just held me, making me feel safe and loved. It was tough, but also kind of a moment where you see the silver lining in having someone so supportive by your side. But here's where it gets even more intense. My mom and brother, they didn't let up. They kept on pushing, trying to guilt trip me into doing what they wanted, which was to go through with testing to see if I could be a donor for my dad. They even had the nerve to demand an apology from me, as if I was the one who did something wrong. Thankfully, my husband has been amazing. He's been like my personal superhero, shielding me from their attempts to drag me back into the mess. But, and here's the real twist, all this drama has kind of thrown me back in time, emotionally speaking. I'm feeling all those old fears and vulnerabilities like I'm a teenager again, dealing with all this for the first time. It's been a real eye-opener seeing how some battles from your past aren't as finished as you thought they were. But having someone in your corner like my husband, it changes the game. It doesn't make the problem vanish, but it sure helps you face it with a bit more courage. Now, for the top comment before the update. I'm truly sorry to hear about the pain and trauma you've experienced throughout your life due to the abuse from your brother and the lack of support from your parents. It's clear that you've endured a great deal of suffering, and it's completely understandable that you carry these feelings with you. Your decision to distance yourself from your family was a means of protecting yourself, and it's important to prioritize your own well-being and mental health. It's evident that their actions have caused you significant pain, and that their recent attempts to guilt you into helping are re-traumatizing you. First and foremost, you should prioritize your safety, mental health, and well-being. It's important to remember that you are not responsible for the choices your family members have made, and their actions are not a reflection of your worth. As for your husband, it's wonderful that he has been supportive and understanding throughout this difficult time. Having someone who is there for you can make a significant positive impact on your healing process. Given the recent contact from your family, you might consider seeking professional guidance from a therapist or counselor. They can provide you with the tools and coping strategies to navigate these difficult interactions and emotions. Additionally, if the harassment from your family members continues and escalates, you might also want to explore legal options for restraining orders or other measures to protect yourself. Ultimately, the decision to have any form of contact with your family should be based on what you believe is best for your own healing and well-being. You have the right to make choices that prioritize your happiness and safety. It's important to surround yourself with supportive people who care about you and respect your boundaries. Remember that healing is a journey, and it's okay to reach out for help when needed. Your strength in sharing your story and seeking assistance is commendable, and I hope that you continue to find the support you deserve as you move forward. Now for the update. Update. All right, so here's what's been going on with me lately, and let me tell you, it's been one wild ride. The last few days, absolutely nuts. A ton of stuff has gone down, and honestly, it's been super tough to even figure out where to start telling this story. There were moments when I felt super weak, like I couldn't stand up for myself, and I almost gave in to all the craziness. But here's the kicker. You guys, with all your messages and support, have been absolute lifesavers. Seriously, you've helped me see that I'm not the bad guy in this mess, and that those other folks, they don't have any right to expect anything from me. So every day, I've got people reminding me that I'm not the one in the wrong here, and having my husband by my side through all of this has been like having my own personal superhero. He's been there for me, 100%. And I just have to say, I can't thank you all enough. Reading through all your comments and advice has been a game changer for me. I even took a big step and asked to have a chat with my family, hoping to get some more info and maybe even some evidence on tape of how they've been acting. Now, my husband has been an absolute rock through everything. He's been right there with me, which totally got under my mom's skin. She kept saying he shouldn't be involved, trying to make it out like this whole mess is just a family issue, and acting like my husband doesn't count because we didn't get married in the same way they think we should have. But I stood my ground. I told them he's part of this, whether they like it or not, because he's with me. And that's non-negotiable. In the middle of all this chaos, having people back me up and remind me that I'm doing the right thing has been everything. It's made me feel stronger, knowing I've got a whole team of supporters behind me, plus my husband right there beside me. So yeah, a huge thank you to everyone who's been sending good vibes my way. It's made all the difference in the world. My family weren't lying. My dad is dying and is way worse than I thought. He needs my liver as soon as possible. And apparently, I was their last option. They believed that I would bend and do anything they ordered the moment they contacted me, just as I used to when I was a child, but not anymore, as some suggested. I started to record every conversation with my phone. I tried to make them admit about the abuse and their role in it because, as some told me to, I investigated and what my brother did to me was not prescribed, but it was meaningless. Mom just keeps saying that never happened. That always lies that I'm insane and only wanted to hurt the family. I even told my dad that I would take the test if they helped me to testify or sign a document saying what my brother did to me. But again, it was useless. Mom keeps saying that never happened, and I was lying in Dad. He acted like I insulted him, saying things like how I dare to try to extort them with something like that. Then I should be ashamed for everything I did to them, and that I should be the one kneeling in front of them, begging for their forgiveness, and offering everything I had to save his life. After everything that happened, even that situation, they still believe I'm the problematic child they always claimed I was, that they still had authority over me, and that I owe them this. I was done after that. I told them I'm not doing that they have no right to ask me anything, that I don't consider them. My parents, since they enabled my brother to abuse me. My husband and I left them, but all the way to the car, my mother followed us, yelling at me for killing my own father. She even quoted the Bible saying that I should obey my father and mother, but looks like I wanted to add another sin to my list. Since then, the harassment became worse. I'm getting called every day, lots of awful texts calling me selfish, calling me murderer. I tried my best to keep and look strong, but I have been breaking in tears every day at the shower. It still hurts. We tried for the restriction order, but it's going to be stupidly slow as they don't believe I'm in immediately risk. And because it's December, and people don't do much on this days. But my breaking point arrived 2 days ago when my mother called again. I take all the calls and record them to try to have something that helped me in case she say something or admit what my brother did. But this time she went right to hurt me. She always knew how to hurt me. What buttons press? She told me lots of awful things, like how they told everyone in their community that I ran away because I was an addict and became a prostitute, that I was a shame, that will burn in hell for killing my father, for lie and turn my back to the family. She told me how I was broken March, that no one would ever really love me for not being pure, that man, that's how she called my husband, would use me, get bored and leave me as the trash I am, and that every man would do the same. She kept on it for 30 minutes. I tried to reply at the beginning, make her say something, make her to commit a mistake, but at some point it was too much. I couldn't stand anymore and break. My husband found me on the floor. I was a crying mess, shaking. I tried to be strong, to face them, to maybe find some justice for what he did, but I couldn't take it anymore. I'm not that strong. He hugged me while I cried. I begged him to never leave, to love me, to take me away from there. I didn't want to know anything about them. He let me cry and supported me until I fell asleep. I don't know how he did it, but I woke up in bed. It was 4 a.m. When I woke up, he was still awake, taking care of me. I told him that I couldn't do it anymore. I can't stand against this. The transplant. Trying to make my brother pay. I was done and just wanted to escape. He told me that he would do anything I wanted as long as I was safe and happy. Yesterday, he came to me and asked me if I really mean what I said about an escape. I told him yes. I wanted to just get out, turn off my phone, and to not think about any of this. So I was impatient for our trip. Every year we stay with his family for Christmas and New Year. His family is amazing, and those days are super fun. Well, he said that we could have a little vacations before our vacations. He said that after a little research, he got us a trip to Las Vegas and Disney. He got everything ready, only needed to confirm. So he was asking me. I really wanted to get out. I was livid. I freaking love Disney and always wanted to go to Disneyland. I wanted to say yes, but how are we going to pay it? We are not poor and had some savings, but everything he was offering me sounds really expensive. To put you in context, my husband loves video games, and beside our own savings, he has been saving to buy a complete gaming 7. He wanted to buy it for his birthday, but he told me that after he saw me and how I was, he needed to do something. So he decided to take that money and use it. This is one of the most beautiful things he had done for me. I cried and hugged him. So now we are going to USA. I'm aware this is not a solution and these monsters will still be there when I return. But with this, I'm getting away from them. To have peace and fun, and to be surrounded of people that love and care about me. To me, that is a win. I notified the hospital that I'm being pressured for the transplant and that I don't want to do it now, no matter what. I'm not giving him anything. I send a final text to my mother saying I will never do it, to stop harassing me and never try to talk to me again. And then I will go to the police and do everything I can to put my brother in jail. I don't want any of them in my life again. I block my mother's number and every unknown number that they had used these days and going for no contact again. It's going to be hard, long, and painful. But I have my husband's support and all you beautiful Reddit people. Again, thank you and happy holidays to everyone. Story 2. Am I the hole for not moving out of the property? My parents gave me so that my golden child sister, her husband, and kid could move in. So I have a big sister who's 34 years old, and she was the first one out of all 4 of us kids to have a baby. She has this little girl who's now 5, and let me tell you, she gets everything she wants. My sister is always spoiling her big time. Even our grandparents, uncles, and aunts jump through hoops whenever my sister asks for something. Like this one time, our parents were supposed to go on a special trip for their anniversary, but they canceled it just because my sister wanted someone to look after her daughter while she went out with her friends for a weekend. Now let's talk about a really tough time I went through. My boyfriend, who was super important to me, sadly passed away, and around the same time I lost my job. Things were really rough, so I ended up moving back to where I grew up. My parents have this house in the countryside that they used to rent out, but it hadn't been taken care of in a while and was kind of falling apart. They told me I could stay there without paying anything for as long as I needed. They were really cool about it. I put a lot of effort, time, and my own money into fixing up the place. It started to look really nice. While I was doing all this, I made a new friend. She's from Ukraine and has a young daughter. They've been having a hard time, so I invited them to stay with me for a bit until they could get back on their feet. It was also nice to have the company. My new friend from Ukraine was really grateful for my offer to stay with me, but she hasn't decided yet because she wants to try making it on her own. My parents were totally cool with her possibly moving in, but then some new drama started. My sister's husband used to work for this company that was doing some shady business, not really following the rules to make more money. Eventually, the law caught up with them, the boss shut down the company, and skipped the country. To make a long story short, after a bunch of other stuff happened, my sister's family suddenly had to move back to our hometown, and they moved in with my parents super quick. Then, my family came up with this idea. They wanted me to move back in with my parents, and my sister and her family would take over the house I fixed up. They said the house was too big for just me, and that it would be awesome for my niece to grow up in such a nice place close to nature. This didn't make sense to me. My parents' house has plenty of room with 2 extra bedrooms. My sister, her husband, and their kid could each have their own room. I mean, when I was 5, I definitely didn't have my own room. Plus, my sister's husband still has a lot of money from his old job, and they're even buying an expensive car. They could afford their own place easily. When I brought up all the hard work I put into the property and mentioned my friend Olhar and her daughter, my family kind of just brushed it off. So when I told my parents about wanting to help my friend Olhar and her daughter, they got super mad. They couldn't believe I was thinking of helping someone else instead of my own sister and my niece. They tried to make it seem like my sister was having just as tough a time as Olhar. Finally, my parents laid down the law saying, since you're living on our property, you have to follow our rules. I reminded them that they told me the house was mine to call home as long as I needed it. But then the conversation took a turn, and it was like we were talking about a business deal instead of family stuff. They stopped short of kicking me out, but every day I got calls and texts from them and other relatives. They were trying to make me feel bad, saying I was being selfish for not letting my sister, who supposedly was going through a lot, move into the nicer house with her daughter. My brothers are the only ones who get where I'm coming from. But because they're just college guys, nobody in the family takes what they say seriously. It's like I'm in some weird alternate reality where nothing I say or feel makes sense to anyone else. And now I'm wondering, am I being unreasonable here? I ghosted my cheating wife and she had a meltdown. Now everyone's blaming me. 7 months ago, I discovered my wife was having an affair with a middle-aged man. I moved out, cut contact, and filed for divorce. Just like that, 8 years of my life had been wasted and washed down the drain. At the time, I was 31 and I was 33, and her drill partner, as I'll call him, was almost 50. I discovered the affair by accident as a result of being in the right place at the right time. I was returning from a business trip a day early, and instead of calling my wife, I decided to drive home and surprise her. As I was driving, I noticed my tank was almost empty, so I decided to stop at the next exit to get gas for reference. This exit was approximately 12 miles from my house. I filled the tank and then started heading back down the road to get on the highway. Each intersection along the way had either a traffic light or a stop sign, so it took forever to get there. I arrived at one such a four-way stop and had several cars in front of me. As I sat there waiting my turn, I saw my wife's car emerge from a side street and then drive through the intersection in the direction I was going. I thought to myself, what the F is she doing over here? I had just spoken to her a couple of hours earlier, and she didn't mention anything about it. I called her cell and she let it ring 4 times before answering. When she did, she sounded out of breath and disheveled. She asked me what I was doing and she said she was just about to call me. I told her our meetings finish up early and I was on my way home. She sounded happy to hear this and asked when I'd be getting there, giving the impression she was home. I told her I should be there within 15 minutes. I then asked where she was going. As I could tell, she was driving. She hesitated a moment and then said she was just going to the store. I asked her which one, and she said, the one that's closest to our house. She was obviously lying as she was now on the highway just a few hundred yards in front of me. I knew at that very moment she was either cheating on me or doing something illegal. If not, why would she lie? I was going to call her out, but decided to play along to see what other lies I could catch her in. I told her I'd meet her at the store and then we could go out to dinner somewhere. I could tell she wasn't expecting me to say that, but she responded, saying that sounded great. I then told her I was just passing the rest area, which she just passed. I told her this as I knew it would scare the bejesus out of her when she realized I was right behind her somewhere. She told me she'd wait for me in the parking lot, and we ended the call no sooner than we did. She hit the gas and had to be going over 90. As she sped away, she obviously did this to avoid me seeing her and to ensure she'd arrive at the store before I did. She's probably thinking, man, I almost got caught. When I got there, she was already parked and walked over to my car. As I pulled in, she was adjusting her clothes and had her compact mirror out, checking her hair and makeup when we got in the store. She said she had to go to the restroom. I told her I did too, so we both went in to do our business. I finished up and came out a few minutes later and waited there for her to come out. She stayed in there for at least another 10 to 15 minutes before coming out. When she finally emerged, I told her I was about ready to send in a search party to look for her. She told me, sorry, I had to do a number 2. I know that's TMI, but I'm explaining this because it was another lie as I could hear the sink running the entire time she was in there. I don't think she even used the toilet, and instead spent the time cleaning herself up. Yeah, she was probably in there cleaning all that stink and cut off of her from that guy she was just with. We did our shopping and decided to grab some prepared food from the store instead of going out to dinner. When we got home and started eating, I asked her more questions about her day to see what she'd say. She told me nothing remarkable happened, explaining she just went to work and came straight home. With each new lie she told, I became more upset, but managed not to blow up on her. That night I tossed and turned, trying to process what she was doing over there. I was restless and wide awake while she slept soundly, like she didn't have a care in the world. It's amazing how she could do that. You would think that she would be a nervous wreck, but obviously not. The following evening, while she was preparing dinner, I checked her cell phone, but found nothing unusual. I also went online and checked our cell and credit bills, but again, found nothing. So he's hitting all kinds of dead ends here. Initially, this gave me a sense of relief, but I realized that didn't necessarily mean she wasn't cheating. It just meant she was good at hiding it. By that point, I was getting antsy, but I needed more proof, so I decided to continue investigating. Looking back now, this was definitely the right thing to do. However, it was difficult holding it together and acting normally. A week or so went by and everything was business as usual. Then one day she called and told me she'd be working a little late, as it was their monthly close. I didn't say anything, but I was immediately suspicious. Even though she had to work over on occasion, I sensed something was up. I had a strong feeling she wouldn't be working, but instead I'd find her visiting a certain someone on that street where I saw her the previous week. So that afternoon I went over there to see if I could spot her. I arrived around 430 and drove up and down the street a couple of times but didn't see anything. I decided to go back out to the main intersection and park at the McDonald's to see if I could spot her driving by. Sure enough, at about 4:45 p.m., she drove up to the intersection and turned down the same street. I gave it 10 minutes and then went down the street to see where she was. There. I saw her car parked in the driveway of one of the houses beside a new Ram pickup truck. I thought long and hard about going up and banging on the door, but my inner self told me not to, as I was on the verge of exploding at that moment. Instead, I took pictures of her car at the house and then went home. When I got there, I looked up the address to get the name of the homeowner. As it turned out, the owner was the co-owner of a company that did business with her company, so she's mixing it up with one of her customers. According to various websites, he was either 49 or 50 years old and had lived at that address since 2009. I later discovered he was divorced with two college-age children. When she arrived home that evening, she had bags of takeout from my favorite Chinese place in her hands. She greeted me with a big smile and came over for a kiss. I tried getting away with giving her an air kiss, but she insisted on a real one. Listen, guy, there's no way in hell I would have given her a kiss, after where she just came from. While we were eating, I told her I had to go out to a customer location the following day and wouldn't be home until the evening. After hearing this, she started asking me for particulars, like where I was going when I was leaving and when I'd be back. I knew she wanted this info so she could plan another meetup with her drill partner, and it really pissed me off. After I told her the details, she told me not to stop and get anything on my way home because she'd have dinner waiting for me. The thought of that nauseated me, but I knew that dinner wasn't going to happen as I had other plans in store for her. I, of course, had no customer visits planned that day, but I did plan to make a visit to her drill partner's house that day. If I saw her car parked there again, I planned to call and confront her, then move out and not tell her where I was going. Unfortunately, or fortunately, things played out as I predicted, and I found her car parked in the same spot as I had the previous day. So I went home, made a hotel reservation, packed my clothes, and then called her. To my surprise, she answered right away and was in an upbeat mood like she was so happy to hear from me. I asked what she was doing and she said she was just sitting in a conference room working on a spreadsheet. Yeah, you were spreading something, but you weren't working on a computer, let's put it that way. I told her she was lying. I continued on explaining. I knew exactly where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. I said she was either effing him right now or had just finished effing him just like she did yesterday, and just like she did the prior week. While I spoke, she didn't say anything. I told her I was done with her and informed her I wouldn't be home when she got there. After that, I called her a few harsh words and ended the call. As you can see, this guy is pulling no punches. He's straight to the point and he knows what he has to do. A good 20 minutes passed before she started calling and texting me like a crazy person. You know why it took her 20 minutes? Because she turned around as soon as you hung up with her and told her affair partner, "Oh my God, my husband knows about us." And for the last 20 minutes, she's been cooking up something in her mind, some kind of excuse that she's going to give you, and now she's ready to talk to you. He goes on, he says, during the 24 hours that followed, she must have left me 50 voicemails and sent me over 100 text messages. You should have blocked her. The messages were all over the board, first saying it wasn't what it looked like, and she could explain after several hours of these messages. She then transitioned to crying and telling me she was so sorry, followed by hours and hours of hysterical, crying, and begging for my forgiveness. Isn't this kind of what they always do in these cases when they're caught? After I got checked into the hotel that evening, I stopped to have a few drinks at the bar to take the edge off. I didn't have much on my stomach, so the alcohol really hit me. I then went up to my room to call our parents to inform them about what just happened. I was feeling a little loose at that point, so I didn't hold anything back and told them everything. They reacted with complete horror and couldn't believe she'd do something like that. Like me, they thought we had the perfect marriage, but that obviously wasn't the case. I ended up staying in hotels for the next few months as I worked through the divorce process. During that time, I avoided all contact with my wife and didn't tell anyone except for my parents where I was, as I didn't want to risk someone telling her. Everyone, with the exception of her closest friends, were on my side. However, just about everyone told me I should at least meet with her to give her a chance to explain and apologize to me in person. From the messages she'd been leaving me and from the reports I was getting from mutual friends, I knew she wasn't handling things well. This made her friends put more pressure on me, and even her older sister joined in to gang up on me. They went as far as telling me if something happens to her over this, it would be my fault. Once they pulled that, I politely told them to mind their own business and block their numbers. Even her parents turned on me, which came as a shock. I was really disappointed with them as we always had such a close relationship before this. Well, her parents in the end are going to be loyal to her. So you always have to remember that even if you have a great relationship with them, most of the time they're going to side with their daughter. Thankfully, my family and close friends were on my side and supported me throughout this whole ordeal. Long story short, I stayed no contact and had my attorney handle everything. My wife tried fighting the divorce and offered me just about anything. I wanted to stay married, but I was done. Once she realized that wasn't happening, she eventually signed the paperwork and things moved quickly after that. Our divorce became final last month. It was a clean break, and I'm now a free man. I don't want to give the false impression that I was a tough guy the entire time because I wasn't. 8 years is a long time to spend with someone. I spent many sleepless nights and had several breakdowns along the way, but I've worked past all that now. My wife still thinks there's a chance we'll get back together one day. She says we're meant to be together, and fate will reunite us just like it brought us together in the first place. I can tell you with 100% certainty that will never happen. She still texts me 3 to 4 times a week telling me what she's up to and saying how much she misses me and how sorry she is. I probably should have blocked her, but I kind of enjoyed hearing about her struggles and what a great man I am. As for her drill partner, I can't say too much there other than my attorney is working with his attorney on something right now. I'll just leave that there and let you fill in the blanks. Now listen to this. My ex told me he meant nothing to her and she cut all contact with him, but I really don't care anymore. So that's what happened to me and how I handled it. Not saying what I did was good or bad or right or wrong. I shared this or other men know they are not alone in this struggle. Many of us have gone through the same and have come out better on the other side, and that's the end of the story. Now, for the top comments. The first one is from a woman and she says, "You admit you're still reading her text, but refuse to meet with her. Why do this unless you're trying to destroy her mentally? What she did was wrong, but she's human like we all are." She goes on. She says, "I had a boyfriend in college who I was in love with and planned to marry. He broke up with me over a date. I went on without telling him. He found out and never spoke to me again. I know what I did was wrong and I had no intentions of ending our relationship." She says, "I've never gotten over it, mostly because of the way he handled things." No, you never have gotten over it because you cheated on him and he isn't forgiving you. Next, here's a response from a guy. He says, "Always do what's best for you and stop listening to others. If you already made up your mind that there was no turning back, then why waste time meeting with her? I went through a divorce years ago, and it was a total cluster. If I could do it over, I'd handle things the way you did." Yeah, when you go through them, it really simplifies things. A law doesn't. And finally, we've gotten another response from a woman. She says you don't know her a damn thing. Closure is for the cheater while the betrayed gets nothing from it. I granted my cheating husband a final meeting. Looking back now, I wish I hadn't, as all it did was make him feel better and made me feel like shit, she says. Story 2. Wife asked me to open our marriage, so I made her regret everything 1 year later. Now she's begging me to close it back and live happily ever after with her, but I'm not interested. I married my wife 2 years after we both graduated from college. We were the typical cliched couple. She was popular amongst everyone. While I was kind of a loner with a small friend group, still, we got together. She had taken all of my firsts. I thought our life was perfect. I would go to work and come home to a lovely meal and happy wife. She would always ask me to buy her gifts like a purse or some jewelry, and I would happily buy it for her. I consider that to be how my wife and I express our love for each other. Our bedroom life was also great, and we both sleep satisfied. But nothing could have prepared me for the day. My wife revealed a horrifying secret to me. It was supposed to be a normal Monday, but I noticed that my wife was sort of ignoring me in the morning. I just thought she was sleepy and left for work. But when I returned home, she immediately told me to sit down because we needed to talk. She had gone on a work trip last week and done something horrible. My heart dropped to my stomach when she said that she had slept with another man. I asked her in a shaky voice, "Did you really cheat on me?" And she said this with a straight face. "No, I didn't cheat on you. It's different." Then she began explaining about how open relationships are really popular nowadays, and she wants to do a similar thing. I asked her why she wanted this was not enough for her, and she straight up told me no. She said she wanted the same freedom that she had in college. She assured me that she still loved me but will leave me if I don't agree to this. Apparently, she had already slept with someone to try and push me to accept her offer because she could undo the past. The coworker that she slept with on the trip was going to be her side lover whether I wanted it or not. At that point in time, I was still madly in love with her, so I did everything to keep her close, including agreeing to an open relationship. Obviously, I set some rules. We can't bring our other partners in the house that I bought for the two of us, and we won't tell the other about who we're sleeping with. I also deleted the coworker's information that my wife gave me. I didn't want to drown myself in anxiety. The first month was the worst. I used to constantly think about where she is and who she's sleeping with. I even begged her not to go on a trip, but she said, "I'm just doing things as we agreed." Stopped crying and left. I was still hoping that she'd realize how much love I had for her. Give up this folly and come back to me. Oh, how naive I was at the end of the month. She was happier than she had ever been. That truly broke my heart as my wife was sleeping with other men while I was crying myself to sleep every night. My love for her vanished. Well, enough was enough. I thought that if she's happy, why should I be sad? That night, I went to a club for the first time in years. Fortunately, the first woman that I approached responded well, and we went back to her place. Unfortunately, it felt terrible for me. I still love my wife, somewhere in my heart. So sleeping with someone that wasn't her didn't feel good at all. I even threw up after I decided there. And then that I won't force myself to do anything I didn't like. So instead, I rekindled my old hobby of gaming. It was honestly amazing. I turned our basement into a man cave and would always game for an hour or so before sleep. I have made a Discord account and was making a lot of friends online. I met a wonderful woman named Cecilia online as well. She was really nice and I was able to open up to her. I confessed my feelings about the situation my wife had put us in. She had destroyed the love we built, and I couldn't do anything about it. Cecilia didn't judge me or my wife and just comforted me while we spent time together. We even met up in real life and hooked up. I was torn between Cecilia and my wife. I still loved my wife deep inside and was hoping she would leave her lover. But I no longer felt the nausea from sleeping with other women. Eventually, Cecilia managed to get me to move on. I no longer cared about my wife's day, no longer asked her to have dinner together, and no longer asked if she's all right. A burden had just been lifted off my chest. This continued for around 7 months, and it marked the 1-year mark of our open relationship. But my wife couldn't process that and would soon take back her own words. I had noticed that she was staring at me a lot recently and also monitoring my actions for the past couple of weeks. I just thought it was because her lover had ditched her. But I was wrong. Once again, my wife asked us to talk. When I came back from work one day, this time, however, she looked horrible compared to how she looked before. She had dark circles under her eyes and looked thinner than before. I asked her in a blunt tone, "What do you want? I have things to do, so say it quickly." She flinched and started crying. She talked about how much she loved me, and that her love had only grown this past year. Meanwhile, she thought that I was drifting away from her, and had already left her in my mind. I simply told her, "Yes, you are right. I am finally happy that my life doesn't revolve around you anymore." That was apparently the wrong thing to say. She cried even harder and tried to hug me, but I moved out of the way. She said, "How could I do this to her?" I calmly reminded her that she was the one to start this, and I was just following in her footsteps. At that point, I was too tired to hear more of her gaslighting, so I just went downstairs and started gaming. I slept in the basement that night to give my wife some space. The next morning, I woke up to my wife cooking a lot of food for breakfast. She said it was all for me. That was weird because we were making our own food for the last year. Nevertheless, I ate it since she already made it, but asked her to not do it again. The next weekend, I was just relaxing in the living room when my wife walked in all dressed up. She said that we should go out together for an expensive dinner. I said, I'm not interested in that. She can go with someone else. She began crying again, even though I wasn't being rude at all. She asked me if I didn't love her anymore, and I just accidentally blurted out, not really. Her face went red, and I thought she was going to get angry, but she just sat down and she told me that she wanted to close our relationship, that she's the one who first proposed, that she had the right to do so. She had noticed me talking to another woman a lot and was jealous of me giving her attention. She said she wanted us to do marriage counseling and work on our relationship. She tried to explain that she was unsatisfied with her lovers, but I thought back to her happy expression. After the first month, I finally realized what had happened. My wife wanted to make me jealous, but instead was now jealous of me having found happiness outside the sham of a marriage. Sleeping with other men didn't give her the validation she wanted. As a result, she was regretting opening our marriage. I calmly explained to her that what she had proposed was permanent and that we can't undo it. I told her I'm happy with Cecilia and that she should also find a new lover. And if she can't do that, then we should get a divorce. I'll happily give her half my money if she did so, but I won't be entering back into a relationship with her. Our marriage was lost the day she decided to sleep with another man. Story 3. My wife cheated on our anniversary. With her best friend's husband, hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be here, but I need to get this off my chest. This is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. Here's the story of how I discovered my wife was cheating on me on our anniversary of all days. My 34M wife, 32F, and I have been married for 7 years. We have 2 beautiful kids, ages 5 and 3. For the most part, our marriage has been great, or so I thought. Last month, we celebrated our 7th wedding anniversary. I planned a romantic weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains. It was supposed to be just the 2 of us. No kids, no distractions, just quality time together. In the weeks leading up to the trip, I noticed she was acting distant. She was always on her phone, giggling at messages, and being secretive about who she was talking to. When I asked her, she brushed it off, saying it was just her friends from work. Fast forward to our anniversary weekend. We got to the cabin and everything seemed perfect at first, but she was glued to her phone the entire time. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe she was just having a hard time unplugging from work. On the second night, she fell asleep with her phone unlocked. I know it's a breach of privacy, but my gut was screaming at me that something was wrong. I picked up her phone and found a series of texts between her and a guy named Brian. The texts were explicit, leaving no doubt that they were having an affair. They even joked about meeting up while we were supposed to be on our anniversary trip. Here's where it gets worse. I recognized the phone number. Brian wasn't just some guy from work. He was my wife's best friend's husband. They had been coming over for BBQs, double dates, and our kids' birthday parties for years. I felt sick. I didn't confront her immediately because I didn't want to ruin the weekend. Instead, I quietly took screenshots of their conversations and sent them to myself. When we got back home, I confronted her. She broke down in tears, admitting everything. They had been sneaking around for months, using every excuse in the book to meet up. She said she was sorry and begged for forgiveness, but I was too hurt to think straight. To add salt to the wound, her best friend called me the next day. Apparently, she found out too and wanted to make sure I knew what was going on. It turns out their affair had been going on right under our noses, even while we were all hanging out together as couples. I took some time to process everything and decided to take a break. I moved in with my brother for a while to clear my head. We've been going to marriage counseling since then, but I don't know if I can ever trust her again. Our kids are my top priority, and I'm trying to keep things as normal as possible for their sake. But inside, I'm a mess. I loved her more than anything, and this betrayal has shattered me. Has anyone here been through something similar? How did you cope? Is it possible to rebuild trust after something like this? Any advice would be appreciated. Small update. Hey everyone, as you all know, this just happened last month. Since then, I've been avoiding any conversation with her that isn't about the kids. She's been blowing up my phone, telling me how much she loves me and begging me to come back home. She says there's something important she needs to tell me face to face. Honestly, I'm not ready to stand in front of her yet. The pain is still too raw. We tried going to marriage counseling, but I discontinued it after just 2 sessions. It was too overwhelming for me. I visit my kids almost every day, and we spend time together, but I can't bring myself to go inside the house. Then yesterday, I got an unexpected text from her best friend. She said she needed to talk to me urgently about something I don't know yet. Now I'm torn. Should I hear her out or just walk away for good? I'm not sure what to think, and I'm honestly scared of what else I might uncover. Thank you to everyone who offered me advice. I appreciate it. I'll update you all soon. I told my sister to F off, and I'm not sorry. I'm 23 years old, and I've got this sister, Emily, who's just a year older than me. To be totally honest, there was a time when I really couldn't stand her, like, at all. But now, I've kind of moved past hating her to just not giving it any of my energy anymore. You see, we both grew up under the same roof, with the same mom and dad, but it might as well have been two completely different planets with how differently we were treated. Emily was living the high life. She got to go to this super fancy private school. Mom was basically her personal Uber, and she had this nice chunk of cash given to her every week just because. Me? Not so much. I was the one taking the public school route, hopping on buses, walking my legs off, and allowance was a word that didn't seem to exist in my vocabulary. Whenever I tried to point out how this whole setup seemed way off balance, our relatives would just throw out lines like, "Oh, but your parents and Emily really do love you. It's not really our place to step in. Maybe if you just put in a bit more effort, things could get better." Seriously? I was just as mad at them as I was at my own folks for all this. Now, growing up with Emily wasn't exactly a walk in the park. She had this way of making sure I knew she was the one everyone thought was the golden child. Prettier, smarter, you name it. And if she ever decided to make fun of me and I got upset, the whole "you're being too sensitive" speech was on replay. It was like they were saying it was just how siblings show love or something. But let me tell you, if I ever tried to snap back with something even a little bit mean, suddenly I was the villain who had taken things way too far. It was like there was this unspoken rule that I wasn't allowed to outshine her in any way. Not with friends, not with anything. And don't even get me started on clothes. If our aunts and uncles ever felt generous and got me something nice to wear, you could bet it wouldn't stay mine for long. Somehow, it would magically find its way into Emily's wardrobe, and I'd end up with these drab, oversized clothes instead. If I dared to complain, my parents would instantly side with Emily, saying that the nice stuff just didn't suit me, or that I was making it look bad, which was a bunch of bull. The kicker? Whenever Emily strutted around in what used to be my clothes, suddenly everyone was all compliments, telling her how amazing she looked. It was like they were all in on making me feel like Emily was right to take them in the first place. I've always known I'm good looking, even when I had to wear those not so cool clothes. Despite that, I still had people asking me out and even got myself a boyfriend. But then, during my second year of high school, something wild happened. My boyfriend at the time ended up getting my sister Emily pregnant. She was in her last year of high school, and it turned out he had been cheating on me with her. This all started happening around the time I found out I got into college early, so I guess I wasn't paying him or my family much attention. The day before I was supposed to graduate, Emily drops this bomb on me. She's pregnant. My boyfriend is the dad. They're in love, and apparently it's all because I abandoned them. Our mom was there when she told me, and I didn't really react much. Mom thought I was being the world's most understanding sister and was all, "I'm so proud of you." I didn't shed a single tear over it. Instead, I waited until everyone was asleep, packed my car, skipped out on my graduation and the party they were planning, and just drove off. My first and only stop was the police station. I gave them all my info and made it clear that if anyone reported me missing, I wasn't. I told them straight up I was escaping from an abusive family situation, heading off to college, and had no plans of ever coming back. I ditched my old phone and everything that could link back to my old life. I went to college, landed an awesome internship that turned into a job, bought the condo I was renting, and even had my dream wedding. Out of the blue, Emily tries to reach out to me on Facebook. She sent me a bunch of messages over 2 days. I hardly ever check Facebook, so that's why it took me a while to see them. She was going on about how I left her when she needed me the most, how she's pretty much raising her kid on her own because my ex, who's now her husband, can't stand her and found someone new who kinda looks like me. To top it all off, she said our parents are mad at her because I left and they're not helping her out. So, my sister's kid is getting a really tough time from our whole family because they see the kid as a reminder of the affair. On top of that, Emily didn't get accepted into any of the colleges she applied to. Being a full-time mom, college just wasn't an option for her. She kept flipping between blaming me for everything that went wrong in her life and feeling sorry for herself. When I read her messages about how bad things have gotten for her, I didn't really feel anything. It's like I've reached a point where I just don't care anymore. Even hearing about her struggles and how karma seemed to be catching up with her didn't make me feel happy or sad. Then she sent me direct messages and even made a public post saying things like, "I feel like I'm drowning and I really need my sister. Why aren't you answering? Why did you leave me when I needed you the most? Please, I'm in such a dark place." She even went as far as saying, "If you don't help me, I might end everything." My response was pretty cold. I commented and messaged her back saying, "Go ahead and do whatever you want. I'm not going to help you, and to be honest, I don't care. You stopped being my sister the day you decided to give me bleach as a gift. After that, I blocked her. There's a part of me that knows responding like that was probably not the right thing to do, but I just can't find it in me to feel guilty or worry about what might happen to her. I don't think I'll ever care about it, even though I know her family and friends would totally disagree with me. I've blocked all of them too, without even reading what they had to say. Now for the update. Update. Okay, so here's what went down a couple of days ago. My sister Emily got herself into some trouble, but thanks to my husband Derek and me helping her out, she's not facing any charges. She even said it was worth it after we bailed her out. I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty glad about how things turned out. This is kind of an update from something I shared before about my sister. I didn't hold back in my response to her, and I'm not feeling bad about it either. Now, on to another part of the story. My mom, who we'll call Emma, managed to get in touch with my brother Cam right after Emily's drama got deleted. Cam was caught off guard because he thought our grandparents were calling, but nope, it was Emma. He didn't tell me right away, thinking it was them. Anyway, he ended up chatting with her and let slip that I was doing really well. Got married, landed a great job, all the good stuff. He kind of painted this picture that I was living this amazing life without them. Cam was really annoyed when Emma didn't seem to believe him because I'm not the type to brag about my life on Facebook. I barely use it, honestly. If I want people to know what's up with me, I'd rather just call or text. But Cam went ahead and sent her photos of my wedding to prove how great things were. It was a small but fancy affair, just 32 guests, and thanks to my in-laws, it turned out to be the dream wedding at this gorgeous place. He didn't stop there. Cam went on about all the cool stuff I've accomplished and how I've found a new family that actually treats me with love and respect. I can't be mad at him for sharing all that, even though he thinks I might be. He's worried because his bragging led Emma to figure out where I might be hanging out these days. Cam's feeling a bit guilty because he's pretty active online, unlike me, and follows a lot of our shared friends and my in-laws who post a lot more. Since not everyone keeps their profiles on lockdown, he thinks he accidentally gave Emma clues on where to find me. She still doesn't know my exact address, fingers crossed, but she ended up at a cafe I usually visit with my mother-in-law. So, my husband's folks. They're super into this idea of spending real quality time together, like doing stuff together as a family and also making sure each person gets some one-on-one time. They've always made it a point to include me in these plans, which honestly has been pretty awesome. So, there I was, spending the day with my mother-in-law, and it just hit me how lucky I am to have them in my life now, considering everything. Back when Derek and I first bumped into each other, I wasn't exactly the most open book. We both kinda agreed that jumping straight into dating wasn't the move. Starting as friends seemed like the safer bet, especially since I wasn't all that keen on the whole let's get super close vibe just yet. His parents were nothing but sweet to me from the start, but me being me, I had a bit of a wall up. I guess I was just used to being on my own. But then, this one night after we all had dinner, my father-in-law pulls me aside for a chat. He lays it out plain and simple. His son is head over heels for me, and they can all see what he sees in me. He told me it was time I started loving myself a bit more, and letting that love in from others too. I'd been watching the family dynamics for a few months by then, seeing how Derek, his brothers, and his parents all got along so well. It was like peeking into a whole different world where families actually support and get each other. I totally lost it and started crying, all the while freaking out about my makeup running. Yeah, I was in that phase where looking good was more of a priority than dealing with my own baggage. My father-in-law, bless him, just hugged me and told me I was being too hard on myself, that ignoring my feelings wasn't going to do me any favors in the long run. Honestly, I adore him for that moment. It's one of those memories that just sticks with you? Anyway, fast forward to the day at the cafe with my mother-in-law. I was totally thrown off because I didn't even recognize my own mom until she spoke up. Her voice was the same as ever, sharp and kinda cutting, just like back in the day when she wasn't exactly the most supportive. She looked different, sure, having put on some weight and all, but she still had that look about her. It just didn't click for me that it was her until she said my name. My first instinct? Bolt. I just turned on my heel and left. It wasn't until I was practically sitting in my car ready to take off that it dawned on me my mother-in-law hadn't come with me, so I had to go back in there and fetch her. So there I was, feeling super guilty for accidentally leaving my mother-in-law behind in that cafe. When I hustled back to get her, the scene was pretty intense. My mother-in-law was all chill, but my mom, Emma, was totally losing it. She was throwing around some pretty harsh words, basically calling out, "Who do you think you are?" to my mother-in-law, and without missing a beat, my mother-in-law clapped back with, "I'm the one who loves her like a real mom should." Things got really heated when Emma dropped the real mother line. That was like the last straw for my mother-in-law, and she didn't hold back. She actually started throwing punches at Emma, which was wild. I managed to pull her away, but by that time someone had already called the cops because of the commotion. Pretty soon the police showed up, and I guess it was the cafe staff or maybe some customers who dialed them. My mother-in-law ended up getting arrested, but we got her out on bail as fast as we could. In the car, she told me she felt it was totally worth it, and that just made me start laughing and crying all at once. She was so fired up, saying how mad she was that Emma thought she could say all those mean things about me and get away with it. My mother-in-law kept saying how glad she was that I found them and left my old life behind, especially since she couldn't stand anyone talking down to me like that. She knew the real me, the person I was always meant to be, but never got the chance to show because of how I was treated at home. She even said she wished she had hit Emma harder. And you know what? It felt strangely good to hear her say that. It was like all those wishes I had as a kid for someone to stand up for me were finally coming true, even if it took a while. For the first time, I felt like someone actually loved me enough to get really mad on my behalf. Growing up, my own parents would never have defended me like that. In fact, most of the time, they'd just agree with anyone who insulted me right in front of my face. Oh, and about my sister Emily? Some people were asking for an update on her. Well, she ended up deleting her post not long after I deleted my comment. A few people reached out saying they were planning to do a wellness check on her and warned me that if anything happened, it'd be on me. All right, let's dive a little deeper into this whole saga, which honestly feels like something straight out of a drama series, but it's my life, so here we go. So, I was totally clueless initially that Cam, who's my bro, and Derek, my other half, were getting bombarded with messages because of all the mess that was going down. Now, Derek, being the absolute legend he is, decided to take matters into his own hands in a pretty epic way. He put together this massive list of all the things I've ever vented to him about, covering not just the stuff I spilled in my previous rant, but also other things I've shared with him over time. And then, like the mic drop moment at the end of each point, he'd ask this killer question: why in the world should his wife, aka me, feel any shame for clapping back at someone who's made her life miserable? And guess what? Crickets. No one had the guts to respond to him. And unlike me, who hit the block button faster than you can say drama, Derek left the lines of communication open. Then there's Cam, my brother, who decided to go in a different direction with his response. He basically called out the nonsense, highlighting how Christy, that's my sister, and her mom, have this long history of twisting situations to their advantage, playing the victim to manipulate others, just like they tried with me. Cam even whipped out old text messages as evidence, showing off these conversations he had with them that proved their manipulative antics. I had no clue Cam and Derek were pulling these moves until everything had already gone down. And surprise, surprise, nobody dared to step up and answer Cam either. About that wellness check on Christy everyone was talking about, I'm still not sure if that actually happened. After stirring the pot, Cam went full fortress mode and blocked pretty much our entire family tree, including our grandparents. So yeah, he's officially joined me in the no contact club. Cam was feeling pretty guilty, especially about my mother-in-law's run-in with the law, and he even offered to foot the bill for her bail. Derek, being the absolute rock star he is, said no to the offer, but came up with this sweet idea to throw a little celebration in honor of my mother-in-law's bold move. Seriously, how can you not love this guy? I made it crystal clear to Cam that I wasn't holding a grudge against him. Sure, the whole ordeal with my mother-in-law getting arrested hit me hard, and I felt awful for not being right there to back her up. But blaming Cam? That never crossed my mind. Knowing that he was so fired up on my behalf and went all out to defend me just made me feel incredibly supported. The fact that Derek, Cam, and my mother-in-law were all willing to stand up for me in their own ways, it's been a strange kind of amazing in the midst of all the madness. So yeah, while the whole situation might not be your typical happy ending story with all its twists and turns, just having these rock-solid people standing with me through thick and thin, it's given me a whole new level of happiness I didn't know was possible, despite the chaos. Story 3. Boss from Hell Gets What She Deserves. I'm a 30-year-old woman who's been trying way too hard to make everyone happy my whole life. I've been working in the marketing world for over 10 years, and during that time I've had all sorts of bosses. Some were great, some were just okay, and then there were a few who were just the worst. But there's this one boss, let's call her Alexis, that's not her real name, by the way, who was on a whole other level of terrible. This all went down about 5 years ago. Alexis landed the job as the vice president of marketing and sales for this company that sells a bunch of stuff, right in the middle of my career there. The word around the office was that she wasn't the first choice for the job. Actually, she was more like the fourth choice, but the company hired her anyway, probably just to make the shareholders stop complaining. I was one of the managers working under Alexis, and my job was pretty much to keep our website and stores looking good with all the right products and deals. I had to handle all the monthly sales stuff, make sure ads were set up right, keep our budget in check, oversee our department's projects, report on our sales, manage presentations, and come up with ideas for future stuff. Basically, I was doing all of Alexis's work plus all the other boring tasks needed to keep our department running smoothly. I was able to manage all this craziness because I had access to Alexis's email. I often had to send emails pretending to be her just to make sure everything didn't fall apart. Meanwhile, Alexis was hardly ever in the office before 10 in the morning, spent loads of time out at fancy lunches, and was always planning some company party or another. And guess who had to organize those parties? Yep, me. I kept asking her why we were spending so much money on these parties when we were already tight on budget. Alexis's genius solution was to just shuffle money around from future months to cover her overspending spree each month. So at the beginning of the month, I'd start with our original budget, and by the end of the month, I'd have to tweak it according to Alexis's instructions to make her look like she was keeping costs down. This little detail about the budget is going to come back to bite her later on. So let me tell you, trying to juggle all the stuff I was responsible for definitely led to some slip-ups here and there. I mean, handling a mountain of tasks pretty much turned my days into these 12-hour marathons. My routine was basically working in the office, then continuing to work at home after my kid hit the hay. Even my weekends weren't spared. I'd start before anyone else got up and finish after they all went to sleep. Now, when Alexis's first big holiday season rolled around, let's just say the sales were a total flop. Alexis couldn't make up her mind about how she wanted the stores to look and kept hiring new advertising and PR folks left and right, hoping to boost sales. The kicker? Most of these new hires were her buddies, and she completely ignored the plans her own team had put together, thinking she had better ideas. Around this time, I was battling this nasty infection that escalated into sepsis, landing me in the hospital. The docs, along with my husband, told me straight up that the stress from work was a big part of why I got so sick. They said I needed to take a step back and chill for a bit. While I was trying to recover, I had this moment of realization about how much I was sacrificing. My health, time with my family, and even the company's well-being. But old habits die hard, and I found myself sneaking a peek at my work and my boss's emails on my phone. What I saw in those emails made me see red. First off, there was this fancy bouquet from the higher-ups at work wishing me a speedy recovery. I figured Alexis must have been behind it, especially since she sent me her personal favorite flowers. I went into her inbox to tidy up a bit, like filing the receipt for those flowers so they could be sent off to accounting. But then I stumbled upon some emails from the last few days that were totally not work-related. Alexis was busy emailing her friends, moaning about how I wasn't bouncing back fast enough from sepsis to come back to work. She was also whining about not being able to find any of my notes or documents, the very ones she was supposed to be overseeing, which, by the way, were clearly labeled and stored on our shared drive. But wait, it gets better. I found this email thread where Alexis was asking for advice from a buddy at her old job on how to boost sales and save her own skin. Her friend asked if someone else was handling most of the workload, and Alexis had the nerve to say it was me. Her friend then goes on to say that obviously it's my poor management causing all the problems, and I could be the scapegoat if the sales didn't pick up by the end of the season. So, Alexis, who is not exactly Employee of the Month, found out I was in the hospital. She then started talking to a buddy of hers about how she couldn't just fire me because it would look really bad, especially since I was out on emergency medical leave. But she figured if she could somehow show I was doing something wrong at work, like stealing from the company or misusing company stuff, then she'd have a perfect excuse to fire me and pin any problems on me. When I got back to work, Alexis tried to act all concerned, telling me she thought I was taking on too much work and wanted to lighten my load. She said she'd handle the department budget herself and asked me to just drop off some invoices at accounting. She also made it clear that I wasn't allowed to chat with anyone in accounting about budget stuff or go to HR if I had any issues. Instead, I had to talk to her directly. Yeah, it was pretty obvious she was up to something. Lucky for me, I had a good friend in accounting named Anna. Not her real name, but let's roll with it. Anna is about 50, and she's always been super supportive, telling me she'd have my back no matter what. So, armed with that knowledge, I grabbed the invoices Alexis wanted me to drop off, but I also decided to spill the beans about everything I'd found out. I shared the nasty emails I read while I was sick, the real budget numbers that Alexis hadn't fudged yet, and even some old budgets that had Alexis's own notes scribbled on them about what numbers to tweak. I even threw in an email where Alexis had basically threatened to replace me if I didn't do exactly what she wanted with the budget. So, there I was, walking over to accounting to drop off the invoices when I ran into Anna. I decided to play it cool and told her, in a very serious tone, that according to Alexis, she was the only person in our department allowed to discuss the budget and invoices with accounting. So, Anna caught sight of the super stuffed folder I plopped on her desk, gave me this knowing look, and pretty much shooed me out of her office. But in a nice way. Fast forward a bit, and bam! Alexis was out of a job before the week was up. Turns out she'd been bouncing around from job to job for the last few years, never staying in one place too long. The big boss and the HR folks even called me in to say sorry for all the mess I had to deal with and tossed in a bonus. A week off with pay that I could use whenever I felt like it. After dealing with a bunch of other issues at that place, I decided to peace out about a year later. Fast forward to now, and I'm back in the saddle as a manager in sales and marketing, working under a super cool boss named Jake. He really gets me, supports my ideas, and is all about letting me build and lead my own team. So, here I am going through resumes for my team, and guess whose name pops up? Alexis's. Yeah, I had to do a double take to make sure it was really her. And sure enough, it was. Her resume made it sound like she was the queen of the marketing world, with her stint as a VP being the crown jewel. She even had the nerve to claim all the stuff I did as her own, boasting about some crazy sales growth that supposedly happened under her watch. Being someone who usually tries to see the good in people and give them a chance, hitting the disqualified button on her application was a whole new level of satisfying. Some folks suggested I should bring her in just to see the look on her face when she realized who'd be interviewing her. Tempting, right? But nah, I didn't want to mess with my new boss's trust in me. Still, part of me is thinking about sending her a rejection letter just from me to her. That ought to be interesting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for